The original Sonic games on the Sega Genesis took place across 3 different islands. Sonic 1 on South Island, Sonic 2 on Westside Island, and Sonic 3 on Angel Island. 3 completely different islands, 2 of which are even moving islands that travel across the sea and through the sky. But what if I told you that these 3 islands all used to be one single landmass, a single mega island, or potentially even a continent onto itself? Would you say I was crazy? Well, hopefully I'll be able to convince you by the end of this. This isn't a thing from the comics, and this isn't based on some developer interview or Ian Flynn saying something dumb. This is me extrapolating based on the information in the games themselves. So to start, this video owes its existence to a YouTuber by the screen name of DellStarX, who made 2 videos which I'm going to reiterate some of the information from. Personally, ever since Sonic Forces came out, I believed that South Island and Westside Island did used to be connected. But his video on the Mystic Ruins from Sonic Adventure was the final puzzle piece that put the full picture together in my mind about this. So I would highly recommend watching his videos as well. First, let's put out all the pieces on the board so we know what we're working with. The world of the Sonic universe is kind of split into 2 different social structures. The society populated by humans, and the society populated by furries. Sort of like how people from New York and people from LA might as well be from 2 different planets. Why, you could almost say that there's 2 different worlds or something. The first Tales Tube video on Sonic's official YouTube channel, uploaded on March 24th, 2022, confirmed that humans in the world of Sonic live on large continental land masses, and showed the globe from Sonic Unleashed for reference. This globe was also used in a recent Sonic Channel art piece uploaded to their Japanese Twitter account on February 25th, 2022, which featured a globe, which matches up with the land masses of the Sonic Unleashed world map. So we can confidently say that the world map of Sonic Unleashed represents the world map of the planet that Sonic lives on. Now, there was a map shown in the background of a couple cutscenes in Shadow the Hedgehog which looked different, but at this point we can comfortably dismiss it as just like an unimportant background graphic that Sonic Team didn't put much thought into, and doesn't represent the geographical representation of Sonic's world. In that Tales Tube video, Tails then also clarifies that, quote, folks like us, aka furries or anthros or animal people or whatever you want to call them, as long as it isn't Mobians, tend to live on the islands which are too small to be seen from space. So while they are not represented on the orbital view of the planet in Sonic Unleashed or the globe in the Arc classroom, there are countless islands that dot the oceans across the world. Now, all of this is paratextual confirmation, which is nice to have, but everything stipulated in the Tales Tube video could be concluded just from the games themselves as well. But why reinvent the wheel, right? It's a lot easier to just point to Sega's official YouTube channel or Twitter account instead of intricately connecting the jigsaw pieces across 30 years of games for y'all, just so we can agree on the fact that, hey look, a map exists. So now let's look back at the islands from the Genesis games. According to the backstory in the Japanese manual for the original games, South Island is a moving island that travels across the ocean, just like how Angel Island is a floating island that travels across the sky. This is why South Island appears off the coast of the map that Sonic Adventure 2 takes place on. South Island can be wherever it wants to be. It is also seen as a treasure trove, specifically of not only lost gems, but also ancient ruins of a civilization long lost. The manual claims, quote, they say that the Chaos Emeralds originate from South Island, and it is because of the Chaos Emeralds that South Island is always moving. For Westside Island, the manual states, according to legend, the people of the island used mysterious stones to advance their civilization, and they achieved prosperity. However, when they tried to misuse the power of the stones, their prosperity vanished overnight, and the gods sealed the stones away somewhere on the island. So Westside Island is a stationary, regular island that used to be host to a prosperous civilization thanks to what is out and out stated to be the Chaos Emeralds. But their civilization vanished overnight, and once again, the Chaos Emeralds supposedly are hidden somewhere on the island. Now, Angel Island's backstory would be mildly retconned thanks to Sonic Adventure, but for the original manual of Sonic 3, it states, "There is an old legend about an island. A long time ago, when this island had still been part of the continent, people of a great civilization lived there. The civilization had created a society of peace and abundance with the energy from the Stone of Power. However, one day, a sect of wise men attempted to take the energy of the Stone of Power for themselves, and accidentally let the energy run out of control. The civilization collapsed in an instant, and it disappeared from history altogether. After this incident, the gods descended from the sky and rebuilt the civilization's land as an island, and released the Stone of Power into the sky. Or so they say." It then also goes on to describe the story from Knuckles' perspective. It states that Knuckles' job actually is to protect the 7 Chaos Emeralds, which are set up around a, quote, pillar at an altar upon the island, only for the 7 emeralds to suddenly disappear in a flash of chaotic light, and the altar of the emeralds was partially damaged. So, I'm sure if you were paying attention, you've probably noticed that the stories of myth for all 3 of these islands are exactly the same damn thing. All 3 islands claim legend of being the origin of the Chaos Emeralds. All 3 islands purport to have once been home to a civilization that used the power of the mystic gemstones to achieve prosperity. All 3 islands were brought low by the abuse of that power, and their civilizations were wiped out. Angel Island is stated to travel through the heavens as a direct result of this cataclysm, and the same for South Island, traveling the seas thanks to the power of the emeralds. This can't be coincidence. Even at this early stage of Sonic Team developing these games, when lore had to be of a low priority, the fact that they had 3 different locations with the same backstory and all using the same collectibles couldn't have just been the result of apathy. After all, look at Sonic CD. That game doesn't take place on an island, it takes place on Little Planet. And the collectibles in that game are the Time Stones, not the Chaos Emeralds. If they really didn't care, and were just reusing the Chaos Emeralds willy-nilly, then why weren't they in Sonic CD as well? Now, the Chaos Emeralds do show up as collectibles in spin-off games like Tails Adventure and 3D Blast, sure. But there's no manual lore claiming that Cocoa Island or Flicky Island had some kind of ancient civilization that exploited the power of the Chaos Emeralds, or that the Chaos Emeralds originate from those islands, they just happen to be there. The similarities between the main 3 islands' backstories and their relation to the Chaos Emeralds has to be deliberate. Let's also look at the architecture of the ruins on these 3 different islands. South Island has overt owl and avian imagery on the tile blocks in the Labyrinth Zone. Twitter user The Great Twitter user The Great Lange points out that this is the reason the Paramount Sonic movies used owls like Longclaw in the backstory for their films. Now, the movies aren't canon to the games, but it is clear that owls and birds are a deliberate element of the ancient civilization that once populated South Island. The Great L does point out that the aquatic ruin zone on Westside Island also features avian architecture, and stipulates that the reason for this is because during early stages of development, Sonic 2 was originally supposed to take place on South Island instead of some new island. So the level design is probably just a leftover from that. However, Delstar X points out that in the background of the pyramid section of Sandopolis Zone, we can see what looks like a depiction of humanoid figures interacting with, you guessed it, birds. Now let's look at the retroactive continuity introduced in Sonic Adventure. The Tikal flashbacks in that game show us that the Echidna civilization used to be expansive, but devolved into an obsession with war and conquest under their new leader. Dialogue with NPCs in the flashback sequences show that this civilization is very gung-ho about continuing their war of expansion. However, their leader thirsts for even more power, and seeks to exploit the Chaos Emeralds to achieve that end. But there's already an ornate altar dedicated to the Master Emerald and the Chaos Emeralds within travel distance of the Echidna's pyramid. Was this altar built by the Echidnas themselves in a time long past before their culture became war-obsessed? Or was the altar built by some other civilization? Or maybe a combination of both? The altar is where Chaos and the Chow currently reside, so that's why the Echidnas want to annex it. But who can say what the origin of this altar and its dedication to the Emeralds was? Either way, it's clear that nothing is tending to the Emeralds except for Chaos, and after Chaos wreaks havoc and wipes out the Echidna civilization, Tikal calls upon the Master Emerald to nullify and trap Chaos, and afterwards the chunk of land that would become known as Angel Island was split off from the larger landmass and sent into the skies to keep the power of the Master Emerald and its enraged prisoner safe from future generations. During the events of Sonic Adventure's story, Angel Island is robbed of the Master Emerald and sent crashing down to Earth once again, this time landing adjacent to the area known as the Mystic Ruins. An NPC dialogue within the Mystic Ruins points out that Angel Island pretty much fits in with the Mystic Ruins like it always belonged there. We can conclude that Angel Island was once connected to the landmass that the Mystic Ruins is located on, and where it is in-game during the course of the character's story is where that chunk of land used to be before Tikal sent it into the heavens and it became known as Angel Island, or at least a close approximation. So you might think that that invalidates this theory, right? Angel Island was once a part of whatever the landmass the Mystic Ruins location is a part of, not Westside Island. Case closed, right? Well, that's where Delstar X's video on the Mystic Ruins comes in, because he puts forward the idea that the Mystic Ruins actually is within Westside Island. I recommend watching his video because he really breaks it down in a pretty convincing way, but basically it comes down to Tails' workshop and home being located in Mystic Ruins, and Tails hailing from Westside Island, and also there's some similarities between the locations within the levels that you enter from the Mystic Ruins hub and the levels in Sonic 2. So I think it is entirely believable that after getting a research expedition grant, that the train station connecting the tram lines from Station Square to Westside Island would have been built. And it's even stated in Sonic Adventure 1 that the tram station is very new. Tails even has idle dialogue where he comments on how much the area has changed since the train station was built.
This area sure has changed after they built this station.
Confirming that Tails living within the area predates the existence of the train station. And it's not like the train station from Station Square goes directly in one straight line to the Mystic Ruins train station. There is a significant off-screen distance between Station Square and Mystic Ruins. Also, take a look at the map of Sonic Adventure 2. This is just a personal thing, but look at this part of the map which doesn't have any levels associated with it. Look at the shape. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be Station Square. Compare this map design and the adventure hub of Station Square, particularly in front of the train station. It's even overlooking an ocean front. Doesn't it seem to fit? And if this is Station Square, look at the map connecting this chunk of land to the San Francisco-esque city that the urban levels of the game take place in. It's connected by a broken up highway that Radical Highway and Mission Street take place on, but also a connected bridge road that Route 280 and Route 101 take place in. So this area, which I think is probably Station Square, connects to the San Francisco city of City Escape by 2 different highways that cross over a massive body of water. If these highways for cars can connect 2 different landmasses separated by a body of water, then I think it's perfectly believable that Station Square could construct a train rail that connects it to West Side Island across the ocean. But there's one final piece of the puzzle. Consider, dun dun dun, Sonic Forces. Sonic Forces takes place on a single landmass which contains Green Hill Zone, a location specific to South Island, which has been ecologically devastated to the point of becoming a desert. It also contains Chemical Plant Zone, a location specific to West Side Island. As confirmed in Sonic Frontiers, this specific chemical plant is of West Side Island. It's not just some random chemical factory and they're all over the place. It also contains an Eggman-controlled city called Metropolis, which is also the name of a zone in Sonic 2 called Metropolis Zone, which in the manual for that game, it stated that Eggman took over Metropolis Zone when he conquered West Side Island, meaning it was a pre-existing location of West Side Island rather than a place that Eggman built. What does all this mean? I believe that South Island, the island that travels through the sea, crashed into and recombined with West Side Island to become one single cohesive landmass again. Just like how Angel Island did during the events of Sonic Adventure, and that's why Green Hill Zone is partially wrecked into a desert. I think the reason Green Hill Zone, Chemical Plant Zone, Metropolis, and even a jungle overrun nighttime casino area are all located on the same small continent of land in Sonic Forces is because we are looking at the recombined form of West Side Island and South Island mashed together. Perhaps because of the world being split apart shenanigans that took place in Sonic Unleashed, and after that was resolved, South Island returned to its point of origin, just like the chunks of planet returned to their points of origin when the Chaos Emeralds were returned to the Gaia temples. With all this information, I think we can put together a pretty cohesive picture. If the Mystic Ruins is located on West Side Island, then Angel Island was once part of West Side Island. If South Island has owl and avian architecture that can also be found on West Side Island, and South Island is specifically an island that travels across the ocean because of the power of the Chaos Emeralds, then perhaps South Island was originally part of West Side Island too. Perhaps all 3 of these islands share a similar mythological backstory, is because these myths were about one single landmass that split off into 3 different unconnected cultures. Therefore, I believe that all 3 islands were once one landmass, perhaps large enough to even have been considered a continent in its own right. This landmass was populated by a civilization of owls and a civilization of echidnas. Perhaps these civilizations were in conflict, similar to what is depicted in the Sonic 2 Paramount film. I'm not suggesting the backstory in the movie is the same as what happens in the games, but perhaps we can take it as informative of how the echidnas and the owls interacted within the primary continuity of the video games as well. Perhaps the owls used the power of the Chaos Emeralds to achieve prosperity and harmony. After this, that's when the timeline of events is unclear, so I'll present 3 different possibilities. Delstar X, in his video on the connection between the 3 islands, stipulates that the echidnas trying to steal the Chaos Emeralds and being wiped out by Chaos, and thus Angel Island being sent into the heavens, happened first. Then, the owls used the emeralds to split South Island off after that. Personally, I think it happened the other way around, that the owls decided to wash their hands of conflict with the echidnas and use the power of the emeralds to split off their culture from the main landmass and became the traveling South Island. This would explain why the backstory of South Island doesn't suggest the civilization of South Island was wiped out because of exploiting the power of the Chaos Emeralds, like the backstory of Westside and Angel Island does. And I think the Owls piecing out first would explain why the Echidna Empire was able to aggressively expand and became so power-hungry. They no longer had any competition. Perhaps the Master Emerald Shrine was originally built by the Owls, and after they split off, they were no longer around to protect it, and it became the sole domain of Chaos and the Chow. It is also possible that the events took place at the same time. The Echidnas tried to claim the Chaos Emeralds, Chaos went ballistic, and Tikal beseeched the Master Emerald and caused Angel Island and South Island both to split off from what became Westside Island at the same time. So the landmass shattered into 3 pieces thanks to the Chaos Cataclysm and this following imprisonment. I think any of these 3 explanations for when and why we ended up with 3 split-apart islands are valid. It's impossible to say which is the definitive explanation. There's arguments that could be made in support and against all 3. How the Chaos Emeralds ended up on any of the 3 given islands isn't so important in my mind, because the Emeralds are long established as extra-dimensional mystical gems. The manual for Sonic 3 even established that they were on the altar of Angel Island, but then disappeared in a flash of light for literally no reason. And the Sonic Rush games confirm that the Chaos Emeralds essentially have a will of their own, so the Emeralds can be wherever they want at any given time. Why the Emeralds are on one island or another island or in Flicky's day off or whatever doesn't necessarily need an explanation. They're there because they want to be there. But I think one thing is clear. Intentionally or otherwise, Sonic Team has laid out a picture of South Island, Westside Island, and Angel Island all originally being one combined landmass. The Genesis Island? Or perhaps the Origin Continent? I went back and forth. I wasn't sure what to title this video. I like both. Genesis Island / Continent because the 3 games were originally on the Sega Genesis. The Origin Island / Continent because of Sonic Origins. I don't know. Call it whatever you want. I also think it's possible that this originating landmass may come to be once again someday. I've already pointed out that I believe Sonic Forces is showing us a combination of South Island and Westside Island being back to a single geographical location once again. If Knuckles ever decides to let Angel Island come back down to Earth and recombine with Westside Island again, like it did during Sonic Adventure, perhaps this little piece of lore theory crafting will be officially confirmed in the text of the games. Who knows? Sonic Frontiers has thrown the lore of the series, and the Chaos Emeralds in particular, into a completely unknown territory at this point. But I think this core concept of the Origin Continent, which split off to become South Island, Westside Island, and Angel Island, is a reasonable conclusion to come to from the lore provided to us by 1990 Sonic Team under the helm of Yuji Naka from Sonic 1 on the Genesis up through Sonic Adventure 2 on the Dreamcast. Personally, I think it's completely fair to use lore introduced in Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Forces to support this theory as well. But hey, if you think those don't count because Yuji Naka done left the building, I still think this holds up to scrutiny. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please also go watch Delstar X's videos and subscribe to him. Follow the Great Lange on Twitter as well, why don't ya? This video would not exist without them, and I'll link to their stuff in the description. Feel free to discuss this subject further in the comments, or just call me a stupid autistic furry if you want to, that's fine too. And most importantly, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.